In early November 1984, the quiet suburban town of Lynbrook on Long Island seemed like any other. Teenagers hung out at the local roller rink, parents drove home from work, and the night shifted gently into the calm of pre-holiday fall. But for one 6-year-old Taressa Frisco, that evening would mark the last time she was seen alive. Taressa worked a part-time job at Hot Skates, the roller skating rink snack bar, just a few blocks from the home where she lived with her family. On the night of November 10, Taressa clocked out at 9:47 p.m. after being told she was terminated from her shift. Distressed, she left the rink heading home. This was a short walk, a routine she'd done before, but on that November night, she never arrived. When Taressa disappeared, the alarm bells rang quietly at first. Her family reported her missing. Local police began a search, but in a short time, under the placid surface of what seemed like a simple missing teen case, lurked a far darker story. Weeks passed. The community grew uneasy. Then, on December 5, Taressa's body was found in a wooded area near the rink she had last visited. Her nude body lay beneath leaves and shipping pallets. The medical examiner determined that she had been strangled, sexually assaulted, beaten, and left under cover of the woodlands, dumped and forgotten. The case shocked Lynbrook, a bright, young girl taken so close to home. Investigators discovered that Taressa had been raped and strangled to death. Vaginal swabs collected during the autopsy showed semen was present. But in 1984, DNA technology was still in its infancy. The samples couldn't identify the perpetrator. Nonetheless, the pressure mounted. 2 other teenage girls in the same region had recently disappeared, an eerie pattern that turned Lynbrook into a kind of local triangle of disappearances. The concept haunted parents and teens alike. In the years immediately following, 3 men were arrested in 1986 for Taressa's murder: John Kogut, John Restivo, and Dennis Halstead. Each was convicted and sent to prison, confessions had been extracted, hair comparisons made, a case built. But by the early 2000s, those convictions began to unravel. The advent of modern DNA testing revealed that semen found on Taressa's body did not match any of those men. In fact, their DNA profiles excluded them entirely from the crime. Their confessions were found to be coerced or unreliable. Hair comparator evidence was scientifically deficient. In 2003, all 3 were exonerated, their convictions vacated, their lives freed. 2 later received multi-million-dollar settlements for wrongful conviction. The case, still chilling, returned to the files as a truly unsolved cold murder. For Taressa's family, the years stretched on decades of unanswered questions, of seeing other cases solved while theirs remained silent. For the Lynbrook community, the wound never healed. The image of the girl who walked home and never got there lingered in local discussions, in neighborhood memory. Then, in the early 2022s, a renewed effort began. Advances in forensic science had reached far beyond what investigators had in 1984. Cold case units, new DNA labs, and ingenuity combined to re-examine evidence from decades earlier. In this case, the breakthrough came from an unexpected source: a discarded drink cup and straw found at a smoothie cafe in Suffolk County in early 2024. Investigators identified a suspect, Richard Bilodeau, then 63, living in Center Moriches. Bilodeau had lived in 1984 with his grandparents in Lynbrook, just a mile from Taressa's workplace. He had been 23 at the time of the murder. Surveillance and investigative leads from 2024 indicated he might have been in the area. But what tied him to the crime was the genetic evidence. DNA extracted from the straw, when compared to preserved crime scene DNA, produced a match. This match linked Bilodeau to semen found on Taressa's body 41 years earlier. On the 15th of October 2025, the Nassau County District Attorney's Office announced Bilodeau's indictment on 2 counts of murder: second-degree murder and second-degree murder during the commission of rape. At the arraignment, he pled not guilty and was remanded to custody pending further proceedings. If convicted, he faces up to 25 years to life in prison. In court, prosecutors emphasized that science had finally caught up to the crime. "Science and DNA evidence doesn't lie," Nassau County DA Ann Donnelly said at the press conference. "The past has not been forgotten. We will never stop fighting for victims." In response, Taressa's father, Thomas Fusco, said he had never given up hope, and that while the pain endured, the indictment brought some measure of closure, at least the beginning of it. The case is notable for its deeper layers. Not only had 3 men been wrongfully convicted and imprisoned for nearly 2 decades, but the earlier investigation was marred by allegations of misconduct. Hair evidence used in the original convictions was later found to be scientifically unsound. Detectives had been alleged to fabricate evidence and suppress exculpatory material. That long injustice became part of the narrative of Taresa's death. They were victims of the system, while her family remained an open wound. Taressa had not just walked home, she'd been dismissed from her job and was upset that night, leaving the rink in tears. She walked into the protected neighborhood she lived in, but never returned. Her body, found weeks later, was only identified as hers after intensive investigative work. For years, no arrest, no suspect, no answer until the cup and straw. When months of investigation in 2024 turned into the February discovery of the drink cup and straw, investigators matched the DNA from Bilodeau. From there, detectives confronted him at his workplace, a Walmart night shift worker in Suffolk County. According to prosecutors, when confronted, Bilodeau allegedly said, "People got away with murder back then." Those words, chilling in their nonchalance, turned into a soundbite for the prosecution. But even as the arrest was hailed as a victory, the case remains complicated. Bilodeau has yet to be tried. A conviction is not guaranteed. His defense asserts innocence and points to the decades of time passing, potential contamination of evidence, and questions about chain of custody. The DA's office acknowledges more work lies ahead. "There's a ton of stuff for us to go through," prosecutor Jared Rosenblatt said. Meanwhile, for Taresa's family and the Lynbrook community, the indictment is a turning point. It doesn't replace the lost years, the birthday candles blown out in her absence, the walks she never made, the adult life she never built. But it shifts something. The case moves from cold file to live investigation. It brings the message that even a teenager's life matters, even when decades pass, and that justice can indeed arrive late, but not too late. Taresa's case also underscores the importance of preserving evidence and the transformational power of DNA advances. Because of preserved samples, swabs from 1984 now tested with modern methods, the path forward changed. The lesson: in unsolved cases, material once considered unusable can become the key. The discarded straw, the cup, the forgotten sample, they became the bridge between past and present. However, the story carries a cautionary note about wrongful conviction. The 3 men originally convicted and later exonerated spent years behind bars for a crime they did not commit. Their injustice became part of the fabric of the case. As the DA said, "We got the guy, but the earlier failures are still reminders of how evidence, procedure, and forensic science can disastrously fail when judgment is rushed." For a teen light on her feet, with skates on her feet and dreams in her head, the night of November 10 should have been one of 15 birthdays ahead. Instead, it became the night she left a job and never went home. Her body, hidden in the dark, waited for decades for her name to echo again, and now it will. Because while some criminals may temporarily escape justice, in the long arc of time, and thanks to advances in science, they are rarely beyond it. Taressa Frisco's murder remains a story of loss, but also a story of persistence, of detectives who never let the file rest, of scientists who never gave up on a vial in a drawer, of a father who never stopped saying his daughter's name, and now of an indictment that signals the journey is finally entering its next chapter. In a Long Island suburb, where teenage jobs at roller rinks once marked innocence and after-school summer nights, a community remembers Taressa Frisco. Her laughter, her job, her walk home, everything stopped that night. For too long we asked, who did this? Now the answer is being sought in earnest. The pages of the case are still being written. The trial will come. But for now, Taressa's name is said with purpose. Her memory, not just a local tragedy, but a symbol that even after 40 years, a life lost still matters, a family still matters, and justice still matters. On the 13th of June, 1972, in Fairfax County, Virginia, a teenager walking through the woods near the old Colchester Road Bridge in Lorton, stumbled upon a chilling sight. The body of a small boy lay partially submerged in shallow creek water, just below the bridge. He appeared to be about 3 to 6 years old, and the medical examiner would later confirm he had died within the past 24 hours. The cause of death: blunt force trauma to the head. The manner of death: homicide. The child had no clothes, no identification, no name, and so he became known only as John Lorton Doe, 1972. Despite the shocking nature of the discovery, no one came forward to claim the boy. There were no matching missing child cases, no widespread alerts, no haunting public searches. The image of the lifeless child, found abandoned in nature, burned itself into the minds of the investigators who worked the case, but leads grew cold. They buried him under an anonymous name and stored evidence, hoping for the day science or circumstance would break the silence. Years passed. Forensic science evolved, but traditional methods like fingerprinting and facial recognition provided no answers. In 2004, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children created a 3D facial reconstruction to show what the boy might have looked like in life. Newspapers printed the image. TV news broadcast appeals, but there was still no breakthrough. He remained a mystery, a nameless victim from the 72nds, a child silenced by violence, buried by time. Everything changed in the 2022. With advances in forensic genealogy, an investigation method that uses DNA and ancestral mapping through public genetic databases, the case was reopened. Using a strand of the boy's preserved hair, DNA specialists from Astria Forensics extracted a genetic profile. It was a profile that would over 50 years later give him his name back. By analyzing thousands of DNA markers, genealogists built a partial family tree. They identified distant cousins on the child's maternal side, eventually leading them to a woman named Vera Bryant, living in Philadelphia during the early 1972. There, a deeper truth unfolded. The boy was not anonymous at all. He had once been loved, once been alive, once laughed, cried, and played like any other child. His name was Carl Mathew Bryant, born on the 26th of May, 1968, alive for 4 years, dead before his 5th birthday. In July 2025, Fairfax County Police officially announced the identity of the child found in 1972. They didn't just uncover Carl's name, they uncovered disturbing family secrets. According to newly revealed records, Carl lived with his mother, Vera, and her boyfriend, a man named James Hedgepeth, who had a criminal history. In June of 1972, Vera and Hedgepeth left Philadelphia for Virginia. With them, they took 2 children, 4-year-old Carl and his baby brother James, born earlier that year. But when the adults arrived in Virginia, they did so alone. The story given to relatives back in Philadelphia was that the boys were left with family down south. In reality, police believe Carl was murdered during that trip, his battered body left underneath a creek bridge, and his baby brother vanished with no trace. In 2025, detectives stated their belief that the infant brother, James, is likely dead as well. But unlike Carl, James has not been found. His body could lie anywhere along the multi-state route between Philadelphia and Virginia, perhaps still unidentified. The original suspects, Vera Bryant and James Hedgepeth, are now both deceased. Hedgepeth had reportedly served prison time for murder in another case. But now, their shadows fall over a decades-old crime with a child at its center. Detectives still piece the story together. Why was Carl killed? What happened during the long interstate drive? What became of the infant James? How many people knew what happened but stayed silent? Even with the main suspects gone, the investigation into the Bryant children continues. Police are now focusing on locating baby James and documenting the events of 1972. They've appealed for the public's help, asking anyone familiar with the Bryants, their movements, or any abandoned child cases in the region to come forward. The resolution of Carl's identity brings a mixture of relief and grief. A child once unknown is now known. His name, Carl Mathew Bryant, is carved into history, not forgotten in a dusty file or buried under a placeholder headstone. For the detectives and forensic genealogists who work the case, it's evidence of what persistence, science, and compassion can accomplish even decades later. But for Carl's remaining relatives and anyone touched by the story, it's a reminder of how violence destroys and how time can bury truth without erasing it. One detective said, "We got his name back. Now we're trying to get the rest of his story." That story, like so many cold cases, rests on the shared hope that justice, even when delayed, still matters. A boy found in the woods in 1972 is no longer an anonymous shadow in police reports. He is Carl, a child whose voice was stolen, but whose identity is now restored. And now, even the creek that once carried his silence bears his name.